Greetings, students. I'm Dr. Sadi, your instructor for this IPE course. What we are going to do this week is we are going to focus on Module 7. And as you know, Module 7 is dealing with another two topics which are interrelated. As you can see from the description of Module 7, we are talking about technology and we are talking about TNCs or transnational corporations. Most likely you've heard about that phenomenon in terms of some other abbreviation, MNCs, multinational corporations, but that's a term that United Nations and a number of other organizations they use. Has become very, very popular. So I wanted to make sure that you're updated, is that right? And we will talk about that one in the next lecture. This lecture is going to focus mostly on what? On technology. All right, so having said that one, as you can see, as usual, Module 7 descriptions is right there, our two topics which are very much interrelated. There are right there, of course, our readings are right there. And you would see, as usual, what? The samples that you need before you can submit your required reading discussion, and of course the PowerPoints. And remember, what do we call our PowerPoints? They are our study guide, is that right? So at the college level, we don't really call it study guide because that's for like high school level or freshman level or something. This is an upper division course, but here we go. All right, having said that one, what I want to do is I want to start with our what? I want to start with our PowerPoint. As you can see, our PowerPoint is very colorful, all right? When movie Barbie came out, my generation, we remembered when we were, young, our parents were playing this, the videos of Odyssey 2001. It was a very important, science fiction movie in terms of connecting the development of human beings on this planet from, the early period, basically tool making, is that right? All the way to, establishing, space station and everything. So that was very interesting because one of the very first, part of the movie, monkeys are basically apes, better to say. They were fighting one another, and one of them discovers a what? One of them discovers a bone, okay? And he noticed that using that bone, he can what? He can destroy, for example, the skull, of dead animals that they were all there, they had eaten before or something. So they started using that one to what? To fight with the rival, group of apes, so they can what? Protect their own water hole. Okay, so that was very, very interesting because then he throws it up, and then the movie moves from there to what? To that a space station or something. Anyway, having said that one, what I wanted to also remind you of is sometime, that's a sign of technology, is that right? So technology doesn't have to be always so sophisticated, computer chips and this and that. Thousands of years ago when those apes, they were using the bone, that bone was a what? That was a technology found from them. Now, they didn't invent it, is that right? They basically found it and started using it. Of course, now we are at a different level. A few years ago, if you remember, the movie Barbie came about, and the opening, part of it was very, very similar to Odyssey 2001. And in a couple of classes, I actually had a class discussion, and students really like it because, when you combine, the academic world with the real world, what is going on, people, they can actually identify with it more. I've been trying to do that because many of my courses, they're policy oriented. So we cover, yes, concept, we cover theories, we cover methods, like all other political scientists. But at the same time, we talk about what? Policy dimension or the practical part of it. Okay, so having said that, I thought, you would kind of enjoy. Of course, Barbie and Ken, the invention of the West, are not the only couple right there. For example, right there, you would see what? The Sarah doll and her, husband, okay? This was what come up with the Islamic Republic as a reaction to what? Reaction to Barbie. I put actually a number of, YouTube website right here for you as well, so you can check it out. All right, so having said that one, let's get started, okay? So how do we start? We are starting with for a very sophisticated topic with a very, relatively speaking, basic, outline. We start with an introduction, we go talk about international knowledge and structure, then we talk about the IP of information, then we talk about the IP of innovation and technology, then we talk about the IP of intellectual property rights. Is that right? IPR, a very, very important what, abbreviation, not just for us, for your generation. Is that right? And last but not least, we have conclusion. So having said that, let's get started. So in terms of the introduction, knowledge, technology, or K&T, is that right? The significance of it. It's remember that technology is one of those four major, elements of development. When we talked about development, we talk about that there are four major, elements, very, very primary: natural resources, human resources, technology, and last but certainly is what? Capital. Is that right? So technology is one of those factors, because you need that one in association with the other one to come up with what? Goods and services. Okay, so it's one of those, and it's also one of the structures of the IP. Remember how your book is structured. Remember how our course is structured. Is that right? Take a look at. I'm hoping that beside looking at, for example, modules, you're actually looking at our class schedule. Is that right? And and the outlines and everything. You would see that we have followed that one. So among the five major structure, production, we have talked about that a lot. Is that right? Trade, we talked about that one. Now we talk about knowledge and technology. We have also talked about finance, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more later on as well. And then, of course, last but not least, security. So knowledge and technology, they lead into wealth and power, and that's why they're so significant. Is that right? You can't separate it. So it's one of the major components, and at the same time, it leads into that. So the ways in which you can have K&T, is that right? You can create it, the notion of diffusing it, and also the notion of what? Governing it. Okay. Having said that, let's move on to more specific. Okay. So here, in this regard, what I did to make it a little bit easier for you, because I noticed some parts of the chapters were much easier, some part of the chapter were more challenging. Is that right? So what I did was, I divided it for you into what some of the major components you should know. One is about definition. So here I have a definition over there for you. I also have some other definition of each one of them. Technology, the same way. The IP includes what? Invention, artistic works, and what? Symbols that state guaranteed monopoly right for limited period. Very, very important. Notice about the definition, I'm not particular like before. I'm not particular because I try to expose you to a lot of different definitions from different perspectives, so you would be familiar with it. But as long as, if you want to use yours, is that right? As long as you make sure that your definition is complete, that's fine with me. Now, if you decide you want to memorize one of the definition or remember one of the definition more or less, just make sure that it's a complete one as well. Is that right? But the rest of it, it's okay. And whichever definition you decide to do, that's fine with me. Okay, so here we go. The next factor, is that right? This is Roman numeral 2, talking about international knowledge structure. First thing you need to know is what? What are the actors involved? Is that right? Every time we have talked about that one. So, of course, individuals, investors are very important. And that, beside that one, we can talk about MNCs. Remember, we also talked about, in terms of another abbreviation, so multinational corporation, IGOs, intergovernmental organization. Now, these are organizations that, remember, we talked about this one way before, right? In Module 0 at the beginning of the semester. These are organizations, these are public organizations that their members are states or governments. Is that right? So individuals who are representing United States, they will be our ambassadors there with a what? Diplomatic passport. Is that right? This is not, for example, Joe Blow going to a what? Red Cross meeting. Is that right? Because, we don't send ambassador to Red Cross. Usually Red Cross in every country has its own organization. When they have international conferences, they choose certain members of their organization, they send them over there. And those guys are not a diplomat. Okay? That's very important to understand that. Then there is the NGOs, or what we call, the correct term, remember? INGOs. Is that right? Put it over there just for you, to remember. But I want you to what? Have more of a knowledge than that one is, intergovernmental organization, like as we just mentioned, Red Cross. Is that right? Greenpeace, Red Cross, these are all what? Organizations like that. Then, of course, last but not least, states. Very, very important. So, associated with that one also is the notion of the rules. So, not only actors play with rules, okay? So, here we go. The domestic aspect, which is the U.S. export control laws, that's very important. International one based on treaties and what? TRIPS and what? WTO. Remember WTO is, all right, World Trade Organization. We talked about this one before. Now, when we say World Trade Organization, we are using the this abbreviation since what? 1995. Before 1991, WTO, remember, it stood for Warsaw Treaty Organization. So be very careful because Warsaw Treaty Organization disappeared in 1991. Is that right? So from then on, we can use that one. All right, so let's move on. Excuse me, to the next slide. Here is the IPE of information. Now, why is information so important? Information for us political scientists is important because information, we see it as leading to power. So, in fact, information itself can be power. Notice that in a lot of conflict, the value of information becomes super important. Is that right? And that's why sometimes when one side is trying to trick the other side, they spread, instead of information, they spread what? Disinformation. Is that right? So, and that's very important. Guess what? In the business world, information is also super important. Why? Because it leads into, for example, the type of knowledge that usually people do not have, and that provide them with more option. More option leads to more power, etc., etc. Better decisions, more power. So it's a state's effort to control information flow. That is very important. Is that right? So state wants to make sure that, okay. And notice, for example, the best example would be states that are not so democratic. As soon as there is a conflict or something, or even during their time of peace, many times they try to control what? The media. Why? Because the job of media is to inform the public of really what is happening. Well, if there is something happening that authoritarian government doesn't want it to be advertised, like, for example, there was a demonstration in a city, far away from the capital or something, about what? About ordinary stuff, not like anti-regime, but, hey, how come, we haven't received salary for months. Is that right? How come we don't have water? We can't live without. See, those are not really necessarily political issues. These are things that they touch you on the, daily basis. But the information getting to the media and then people know about it, then they're going to say, wait a minute, those guys are complaining about that one. We haven't, maybe we do, and you see what I mean? That increases stress on the, government. And sometimes when the governments are not, are authoritarian, they're not democratic or something, they're very, very sensitive to issues like that. Is that right? Because we think that, they're going to always rule like that, but they're afraid. They're always kind of insecure. All right. So information in the what? Hands of the private actors. That's also what? A very important factor. So I'm highlighting because I know some of you say, Dr. Sadi, would you please, there's so much information, would you please highlight what we should really focus on? So remember, the PowerPoints are highlighting that. Now, but let's go to the next slide. And in this slide, we're talking about the IPE of innovation and technology. So government innovation policies in the developed countries, how do they promote it? They promote it by grants, okay? Look, in the U.S., the government, through National Science Foundation and everything, provides grants for a lot of activities. Of course, a lot of engineering. But guess what? Don't underestimate. Even in international relations, political science, we get grants, okay? Our grants are not as big as their grants, in technology, I know that some of my colleagues in physics and chemistry, they get like millions of dollars. Is that right? Because sometimes one of the equipment they buy is already several million, okay? Or at least $1 million or something. In political science, we can do our research much cheaper, usually. All right. So here we go. Japan, for example, Japan's industrial policy, which, we're going to talk about it more in the future. Also improve state, reputation is important. Closing the K&T gap, that's very important. There are countries that are in rivalry with each other. For example, China has always tried to close the gap, technology gap with the U.S. to catch up. Is that right? It doesn't want to be in the second position. So Chinese effort, faster growth than what? Than Japan right now. Struggle over the education, and the skilled workers. Look, you get ahead, these technologies nowadays are usually the result of people being highly educated. Is that right? And very, very specialized. All right, this is very, very different from what ages ago. So in that regard, we're talking about very, very skilled workers. So Western education and what Eastern youth visas. Many of the Eastern students, coming from Asia, other parts of the world, they love to come to the West, go to the schools. Why? Because over there, in terms of the technology, are much more advanced. Okay, let's put this one out there and then go to the next slide. Okay, the IP of IPR, is that right? Do you remember that abbreviation? So the three perspectives about IPR, intellectual property rights. Mercantilists, they're kind of selfish. They say, okay, whatever we did, ours, and whatever is for others, we're going to try to use it without really any kind of compensation or something. As you can see, it's a one-way street. Remember, these guys were zero-sum one. Liberal school has been always talking about we need to protect it, so that will be an incentive for others to come up with something. You see, we usually would expect these guys to say, oh yeah, let's share. No, not necessarily. Because they want to use it as an incentive. Is that right? Remember, here the unit of analysis is not like state, like mercantilist. Is that right? Here the unit of analysis is an individual. And how do you get an individual motivated? By protecting their rights. Is that right? If a songwriter, author, is that right? An inventor of a new app, here we go. If what they work all their life and lose all the weekends and everything else and don't go out and don't do anything and they're just working, is that right? They should get some kind of benefit. So that's why liberalism or classical liberalism tries to protect. Then we have the structuralism, all right? The structuralism usually talk about notions like common heritage of mankind. Really, whatever technology we have developed is somehow related to the previous one, and we are using the benefit of the other one, so we should share. You see what I mean? That is a very different different notion. Politics of the IPRs in the developed countries, very, very important. That section I thought in the chapters and the reading was so easy, so I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I'm going to try to just focus on areas that either the text and the readings, they don't emphasize very much, so you don't have enough background, or, how to put that material with others so you would see the connections. Is that right? Okay. Then there is also the north-south or developed, and developing countries, connection. There is conflict over the IPR. Is that right? And the patent, for example. Like one example is the patent medicine. Okay. Well, the diseases that we discover and we try to cure is not the diseases only in the West. Is that right? Those are diseases anywhere. So many of the developing countries, they say, look, to get the license to, or, many of them, first of all, they do not have the capability. Not all of them have that capability. Like for some countries, maybe like among the developing countries, like Iran, Saudi Arabia, India would have the capability to do something. Is that right? But poor countries like Yemen, like Afghanistan, like Cambodia, they are not, or Laos, they're not going to have the capability of making all of this stuff. Is that right? So they have to import it. And guess what? Imported medication can be very, very expensive for the same type of things that here would be a lot cheaper. Of course, right now we have sometimes the reverse idea as well. All right, let's go to the next one. And here we are getting into the conclusion part. One thing that you need to remember is the mercantilist, liberalism, and structuralism views on, K&T is focusing, the bottom line is on the notion of wealth, how it brings wealth, and how wealth and power, they go together. That's one. Second thing you need to consider is that, K&T provides major advantages to individuals, MNCs or TNCs, is that right? The same phenomenon, and states. Next one, you should remember that, government aims to control K&T, is that right? But there are also leaks, like what? Like Edward Snowden, that he kind of leaked, he was working for NASA and he kind of leaked a lot of very important information, is that right? So these are real stuff. This is not, let's hypothetically think about such and such concept. That's what I like about IP, to be honest with you, because the examples are so real, and it impacts our life. So that's why we need to know. And then while MNCs aim to have control over K&T, is that right? They also cooperate with the government to control the flow of it. So that's another very important thing to consider. Continuation of some of the main points that we would like to, conclude. Government traditionally fund research at the academic and MNCs, is that right? US, UK, and Canada attract the brightest student, while the government, use of visa can control the flow of it. Like for example, sometimes here even at UCF, we've had a hard time with the rules and regulation to bring students for some of our high-tech, departments. Is that right? Engineering, lasers, or something like that. I know that. But at the same time, some people, they say, you know what? Some of these students that they come here, we come with different ideas and we educate them. After they get all that knowledge and everything, they prefer to work right here as opposed to go. So they become absorbed into what a lot of the corporations here in the U.S. or something, they contribute more. So there are a lot of different perspectives, and I want you to know them all right? Not just one side. New powers like China and North Korea and Iran are getting into that quite a bit. So let's just do not consider, oh yeah, North Koreans are isolated, they can't do anything. Oh, Iranians or Islamic Republic, they can't do anything. Some of these countries are very, very good in technology, okay? It's just their ideology is different and not so friendly toward us, but they are very good with technology. So aim to decrease the Western dependency by what? Long-term plans that they have. IPR is also a major foreign policy goal of the US, EU, and what? Japan. So it's not just US. So I want you to remember that part. Last but not least, the very, very last slide focuses on what? Issues such as IPR's debate and struggle will continue in the future between what? Developed and developing countries. Is that right? Because developed countries are usually the ones that are the home of many of these technologies being developed, and developing countries are not stupid, they want to use it too. Is that right? And at a reasonable ways. And then there are new questions about this whole process. Will enforcement of the IPR help or hinder the poorest developing countries? That's one. Another one, will US continue to dominate the tech world? Another important one. And last but certainly not least, will there be a new era of economic nationalism? Is that right? And that is a question we're going to leave it with because there are different answers to it. All right. As usual, what I'm hoping is, first of all, this very colorful outline attracted your attention on a topic that is not necessarily an easy topic. We brought a lot of things together. We tried to provide you, as always, with a big picture. Is that right? And then also explain some of the things that maybe the readings were not so good at it, but you're smart. So I'm sure that, I can say A and you say airport. Is that right? You can sometimes read ahead of it. You just need a little bit help here and there to adjust it. However, if this topic still raises a lot of questions for you that you cannot answer in preparation for the next exam or something, as usual, what do? You email me. You can always, of course, come and see me during the office hours, but you can always email me, and then I will be more than happy to answer it. If the answer to your question is short, I answered it in the email. If you are asking a question that the answer will be very comprehensive, I said, okay, could we talk about it face-to-face or in a Zoom session or something like that? And we will do it, or a phone call. All right? Have a good one. And don't forget, anytime you have a question, you what? You email me. Bye.